been thinking about, well, I have been thinking for a few days about what new segment to do in my videos, and I've decided that I'm going to read. Now, my first series that I'm going to read is going to be the House of Night series. I have all the books by P.C.Cast. If you don't know, the author is P.C.Cast. And I'm going to be doing all of the books from that series. That's the first series I'm going to do. And from now on, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do reading, and then on some days I'm going to do makeup. But today I'm going to start with the Fledgling Handbook, which is pretty much The House of Night is a series of books about vampires, all supernatural things, and it's about a school where the supernatural people go to, the vampires. And when I was in high school, I loved this series. I was in love with it. I was in love with this series so much so that every time a book came out, I would tell my mom, like it was middle school and high school, I would tell my mom to rush me to Books A Million so I could buy a copy of the book. And they'd always have them. Of course, they already knew when the release date was, and boom, they would sell out so quickly. So it was a big part of my childhood growing up. And I was opening a box, and I found them. And I was like, you know what? I want to read these. And I still have every single original one that I bought, except for I think 2 of them. And I had to buy those, but it's okay. Because the ones, I'm going to read all of them. It's just that I think one of them I'm going to read online, and the other 2 I'm just going to wait till they come, and then I'm going to buy them. So here it is. First, we're going to start with the Fledgling Handbook 101 by P.C.Cast. P.C.Cast. The Fledgling Handbook 101. Now, it starts with the definition of the word marked. It says marked. The act of spontaneous placement of an outlined crescent moon tattoo on the forehead of a human teenager, signifying the beginning of a physiological and sociological metamorphosis which culminates in either vampirism or death suddenly. All right. And pretty much that's what being marked is in the vampire world in this book. When you get bitten by a vampire, you either turn or you die. Not everyone is built for it. Now, let me get to the contents. We have the introduction, vampire biology, rituals, night kind, elementology, a brief introduction to vampire history, and words of hope from fellow fledglings. And I'm honestly not sure if I'm going to read one whole book or half a book or maybe 2 chapters or so. So we'll just see. It depends on when I get too tired to read. And the introduction seems to be about... Okay, so I'll probably honestly read the whole introduction. So I probably won't read chapter 1. This will just be the introduction because it's a long one. All right. So, merry meet, fledglings. Welcome to a new life, a new world, and a new you. Welcome to the House of Night. Within the pages of the Fledgling Handbook 101, you will be introduced to the rich history of vampires, the foundations of several major rituals, as well as the faces of Nyx, and finally, you will be rewarded a beginner's look at the biological miracle that is the change. This is not a rules manual. Quite simply, you are no longer a human teenager. You are a fledgling, which means you are now held to a higher standard of behavior than human young. Fledglings do not steal, lie, or cheat, while we, your vampire elders, do understand all young people make mistakes. The consequence for consistent fledgling misbehavior is to be expelled from the House of Night. Please refer to the biology chapter for the end result of not being included within a vampire coven. You may contact the professor of your new homeroom for handouts specific to your House of Nights class hours and list of elective choices, as well as a curfew and cafeteria schedules. I think I love that because it puts you in the book. Makes you feel like, well, technically, you're a student. Class emblems. Each House of Night has its own unique style of uniform, which reflects the school colors and the style of dress decided upon that individual school's council. But regardless of where you are attending a House of Night, there will be certain constants agreed upon throughout our society. The schools are all set up on a 4-year secondary education model, with the classes of third former, fourth former, fifth former, and sixth former, following the basic freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, or 9th through 12th grade year structure, so that you may more easily navigate your way through your school. It is important that you understand the class emblems that differentiate the levels of fledglings, as well as the symbology that designates a vampire as one of your professors. Please study the following insignias and the explanations about them to avoid embarrassment and confusion when you are interacting with teachers and fledglings from upper classes. So this book literally is as if you've gotten bitten, you have a mark, and you've gotten turned, well, you've started to change into a vampire. And that's what I love about P.C.Cast, because this is a very creative idea. Of course, all the books are about the main characters in the story going to the school and what they go through. But this handbook is pretty much as if you're one of the students. So this symbol right here is of the third former. Description. This emblem is called Nyx's Labyrinth, and it is a pattern of delicately embroidered spiral pathways, which circle in glittering silver thread just over a third former's heart. Nyx's Labyrinth symbolizes the circular nature of life and the beauty of our belief that all bodies must die. Life is eternal and never ending. That though all bodies must die, life itself is eternal and never ending. So there's that one symbol for third former again. And it also helps you understand when you read the book some of the terms now that you've read this handbook. Fourth former. This is the fourth former symbol. Description. This emblem is signified by the lovely golden wings of Eros, who is Nyx's child and the personification of love. It is meant to remind us of our goddess's great capacity for love, as well as our continuous movement forward on our individual life paths. And by the way, Nyx is pretty much like their goddess. So, Fifth former. This is the sign for fifth former. Description. This emblem is that of Nyx's golden chariot pulling a trail of shining silver stars. The chariot illustrates that you are continuing on Nyx's journey. The stars symbolize the magic and splendor of the 2 years that have already passed. This sign is for sixth former. Description. This is the most provocative of the 4 emblems. Intricately embroidered gold and silver threads bring alive the 3 fates, who are also the children of Nyx. Atropos, the third sister, is holding scissors to symbolize the end of your years at the House of Night. For many of you, this will mean the beginning of a long life as a vampire, though for some of you, the scissors of Atropos will hold a darker meaning. Darker meaning, if y'all ever seen Hercules, y'all remember the fates and y'all remember what happens when she took out them scissors. Okay, this is the Dark Daughter symbol. Think of the Dark Daughters of like a sorority. Description. The Dark Daughters and Sons is an exclusive House of Night organization made up of the best and brightest of our fledglings. The leader of your school's Dark Daughters is a high priestess in training. Being invited to join this prestigious organization is a great honor. The symbol for Dark Daughters is the triple moon, with a full moon in the center and 2 crescent moons back to back against it. The leader of the Dark Daughters wears a triple moon pendant outlined in garnets. This is the professor symbol. Your professors wear one of the universally recognized signs for Nyx. Whatever country you are in, and whichever house of night ends up being your home, your professors will proudly display this emblem. The symbol is as simple as it is exquisite. The fair form of our goddess, hands raised, cupping the crescent moon. Okay, I'm almost done. Fledgling curriculum. Excuse me, I'm not a professional. This varies for each individual house of night, but you should transfer to a different house of night upon realizing particular talents and affinities. There will be no penalties, meaning certain houses are best for certain things. Kind of like if one school is for cooking and one school is for whatever, you know? We believe fledglings are most likely to benefit regardless of if and when the change ensues through education that is thorough, dynamic, and challenging. This commitment developed several hundred years ago as new attitudes launched the Renaissance movement in Western Europe and continues to expand in today's world. So your classes will reflect this. Integrated body, mind, and spiritual health will be emphasized at all times. Most schools begin at 8 p.m. and continue until 3 a.m. or later, depending on individual interests, because they're vampires. Below is a standard school evening schedule, with a variety of classes offered for each former year. And this is the schedule. 7:45 p.m., assemblies, general announcements. 8 p.m., sociology, archaeology, philosophy, and history. 9 p.m., literature and poetry, writing, art 2D and 3D. 10 p.m., music, drumming, voice. 11 p.m., economics, business, math, computer sciences. 12 a.m., lunch, all organic foods, an assortment of local produces, cheeses, red and white wine. Vampires can drink wine. Any age. 1:30 a.m., foreign languages, sciences, anatomy, psychology, botany, chemistry, quantum physics. 2:30. Oh, that says physiology, excuse me. 2:30 a.m., exercise, horseback riding, fencing, pearl diving, in the coastal house of night schools, yoga, tai chi, parkour, in urban house of night schools, interpretive dances, and warrior training. After school activities may include, but are not limited to, the following: Dark Daughters and Sister and Sons Gathering, Priestess and Training Sessions shadowing Sons of Erebus Waters, feline enrichment, including maintenance, exercise, brushing, multiple forms of play, gardening, catnip plots. Cats are very sacred to vampires. So that's why they have classes like that. House of Night Media Centers are open at all times. We encourage our fledglings to take full advantage of this and indulge in any and all literary pursuits. House of Night Computer Centers are state of the art, and we are currently in the process of installing 3D studios as well as individual room monitors for our students. Laptops are available for use on and off campus. Entertainment: all dorms have widescreen televisions, each fully equipped with high-end technology for the transmission and enjoyment of movies and video games. We have found no need to restrict these options, as most fledglings find our curriculum so engrossing, they have little interest for passive pastimes, meaning you're going to get into the school. Here in the book, when I first got this book, they have notes in here, and I wrote down in the book. And the notes pretty much says the book belongs to, you put your name, date of the marking. This one says April 21st, 2009 when I got the book. It says what house of night location are you, meaning where you live. I put Jacksonville because that's where I lived at the time. My roommate, I put Lorna, which was one of my friends in my freshman year of high school. It's kind of funny how I started reading these books my freshman year, and you start as a freshman. My mentor, I put my mom, and I put her cell phone number, and what's crazy is she still has the same cell phone number today, so I'm gonna block that out. But you see, it also has where you can put your class schedule if you want to make up your own schedule, which is pretty cool. And that is the end of, the introduction of the book, honestly. I'm not going to, actually, let me see how much. Because if it's not a lot, yeah, see, this is a lot. Chapter 1, I'll read chapter 1. So I'm going to read chapter 1. Vampire Biology. Introduction. Many fledglings find this chapter frightening. Let me begin by reassuring you. Fear can only be vanquished through knowledge and confidence. This chapter exists to educate you about the physiology of what is happening to you. Our goddess Nyx exists as loving comfort for you. Be confident that she understands your fear. Seeking her presence and guidance will be a benefit to you long after you have changed or have left this realm to join the goddess in the other worlds. Other worlds kind of like heaven. Physiology of being marked. Being a vampire is a complex physiological event that begins when a young adult is marked sometime after puberty, and the sapphire outline of our goddess's crescent moon appears on the forehead. The appearance of the mark is a symptom of a biological event that has begun within the body. While we understand the event originates within DNA during hormone surges triggered by puberty, we do not understand why only a small percentage of teenagers are marked, and why an even smaller percentage of those marked actually complete the change to a full-grown vampire. What we can tell you, fledgling, is what we expect as your body moves through the metamorphosis, which will culminate either in changing into an adult vampire or your death. Meaning, if you don't become a vampire, you die. And I guess they have this picture here. It says, this is about your eyes pretty much being dilated at first. Initial symptoms. You have already experienced the prequel to being marked. You felt as if you had had a cold with fever, chills, and coughing. At this time, your body secreted an invisible essence from your apocrine glands called an alarm pheromone that is only present at the very beginning of the sequence of reactions. Left on your own, you would have died within a very few days. Fortunately, our goddess has gifted a section of vampires called trackers with the ability to scent alarm pheromones. As soon as you were in the presence of a tracker, the preservation pheromone that only a tracker secretes began to act on your T cell receptors to slow down the degeneration of your pulmonary capillary system. The external evidence of this physiological reaction is the crescent, like this, that appears on your forehead. But fledgling, as you well understand, the tracker's preservation pheromone creates only a temporary respite from the potentially fatal reaction that began in your body, which is why all newly marked fledglings must make their way directly to a house of night, so that the shield pheromones secreted by all the vampires bathe your pulmonary and capillary systems to minimize the unavoidable damage that takes place within you as your body attempts to assimilate the necessary changes that happen in order for you to evolve to a superior sorry, that word just gets me. Physiology of a vampire. Now, permanent symptoms. As you move through the years at the House of Night, your body continues to adapt to its changing physiology. You will first begin to notice that your hair will thicken and lengthen, your skin will become smooth and clear, your fingernails will strengthen and lengthen, your strength, especially in male fledglings, will increase, as well as your stamina. Wink, wink. Tolerance to temporary changes in your environment will increase. Due to your rise internal body temperature, fledgling males will become sterile and females will stop menstruating. You will also be aware of a change in your dentation. It is, of course, a ridiculous myth that vampires have fangs, but your teeth will be straighter and stronger than human dentination. You might also begin to notice a change in your saliva. Many fledglings describe this as a sudden being aware of tasting sweetness or tartness. Do not let this disturb you. It is a perfectly normal reaction to the coagulants and anticoagulants that are developing in your salivary glands. Along with growing fangs, it is also a myth that vampires cannot bear sunlight. The truth is, our bodies become hypersensitive as they change, which makes direct sunlight uncomfortable to our skin and our eyes. We can tolerate the light of the day, though we prefer the magical veil of the night. So no fangs, and they can be in the sunlight. Different worlds have different rules. Psychological symptoms. In order to fully understand why these changes are happening to you, you must realize that the change to vampire is biologically based on a predator-prey survival system. This is not to infer we are violent beings with uncontrollable urges and evil intent. It simply means that our evolution is based on changes that promote survival in a world where humans vastly outnumber vampires, thus translates psychologically into a more focused intellectual being. So do not be surprised that as your physiology develops and becomes fully vampiric, you also begin to realize it is easier for you to focus on academic pursuits. Many fledglings discover new intellectual talents and abilities, which often includes what humans call a sixth sense. Like, special notes. Imprinting. It is forbidden for fledglings to feed directly from humans. For your first years at the House of Night, this shouldn't be a problem for you to avoid. Typically, your desire for blood only increases as you move closer to the change. However, we acknowledge that some fledglings do maintain communication with humans, which might lead to experimentation and accordingly, to an inadvertent imprint developing between a fledgling and a human. We cannot emphasize enough of the dangers of this. Not only are you not prepared for the responsibility of such an intricate psychological bond process, but the unavoidable fact is that some of you will die. When a vampire dies, her human consort, like consort is a human that has imprinted with a vampire, is adversely affected, often to the point of death, meaning they'll be so depressed they'll probably die. Further information about imprints will be available to you when you become upperclassmen. Thank for y'all beginners. The warrior bond. It is also forbidding for a fledgling to accept the oath of a warrior. You will learn more specific information about this magical bond as you progress at the House of Night and move closer to the possibility of completing the change. As a third former, what you need to understand is that the bonding oath between a sworn warrior who must be a fully changed vampire and his high priestess is more intimate than an imprint and more lasting than even that of a relationship with a mate. So every warrior has a high priestess that they serve. Because the bond is a result of an oath that is based on protection, an oath-sworn warrior spirit will often become intertwined with his high priestess, and he may develop the ability to sense her feelings. The oath of a warrior is to be treated only with the utmost respect and solemnity. It is never to be given or accepted lightly, because it is a life-altering bond. So when you are a warrior, your high priestess is everything to you. Almost pretty much more than your wife. Death. Fledgling. It is an inescapable truth that not all of you will complete the change to adult vampire. Please understand that during your years at the House of Night, you will witness the death of fellow classmates. Prepare yourself. Once a fledgling's body rejects the change, there is nothing that can be done to prevent the death. You can, however, honor those who do not change by carrying on and not allowing unavoidable unpleasantness to influence your own development. Know that Nyx will welcome all of her children to her verdant meadows, whether they are fully changed or fledgling. At the right is an early chart from the implications of being marked, done through our beloved pentagram. As previously discussed, new fledglings must enter a House of Night to survive. Some do not arrive on time and expire. Sir Rich hypothesized that others do not develop properly and die. The remaining fledglings who move through the change, though, are embraced with energies from merging elements and promise a historically long and abundant life. This is a simplistic version of what is very complex biology, merged with the magical influence of Nyx. Now, I can't read this, but it looks pretty cool. It's pretty much the percentages of if you'll survive or not, and if you do, what happens, and blah, blah, blah. Last page, people. Conclusion. For as long as vampires have drawn breath, there has been conflict over the change. You might know some vampires who adhere to the philosophy that believes the selection of those fledglings who complete the change is entirely a random biological act. They will encourage you to exercise and eat well so that your body will be biologically as strong as possible. Others of you will be encouraged by your mentor and professors to focus on learning the rituals of Nyx and in being close to the goddess if possible. Their philosophy hypothesis that because Nyx grants us free will and the ability to choose our life's paths, she is free to choose which fledglings to gift with a change and which to allow nature to dominate and destroy. Furthermore, many more vampires prefer not to enter the debate at all. Whichever is your experience, it is important to focus and understand what we know are indisputable facts about the change. And after this page, there is personal documentation, like you put your name, like pretty much this is progress in the change. So the first one is like you put the picture, name, date, physical observations, picture, date, physical changes in the past year, and that's pretty much it. And this is chapter 2. But I'm going to start chapter 2 in my next video, which will probably be tomorrow, maybe tonight. It honestly depends on what my schedule is looking like. So right now we have chapters 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I might do 2 and 3 tomorrow, and then 4 and 5 the next day. Sometimes I may post multiple times a day. It just honestly depends on whatever. So chapter 2 will be read tomorrow. I hope whoever watches this video enjoyed the first 2, well, technically 2 chapters of the Fledgling Handbook, and I cannot wait to get into the actual books because, like I said, I have them all. I have them all. I have them all. I have them all. They're 13. I'm not about to hold all of them, but I am going to read every single one for you guys. I love you. Make sure you drink water. Have a great day.